Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Navigating the Pathways to Excellence program. We're going to give folks a moment to get logged in, and then we will get started with our exciting panel of folks who are going to share with us about their experiences with the Pathways to Excellence program. So seeing some folks joining. Give just a few more seconds. I don't see that we're having a whole lot of folks still gathering, so we have greetings in the chat. We are recording this session and we will share the recording broadly with the network. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. I am Terry Bearden. I'm the Project Director for Organizational Capacity Building here at the National Community Action Partnership. Welcome to today's webinar. Again, our topic is Navigating the Pathways to Excellence program. So we always like to ground ourselves in the promise of community action. Community action changes people's lives, embodies the spirit of hope, improves communities, and makes America a better place to live. We care about the entire community, and we are dedicated to helping people help themselves and each other. And this can really help to ground our network and help us to remember why it is that we do the work that we do. A quick overview of what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to kind of talk about the nuts and bolts of the programs, the processes, enrollment procedures, those types of things. And then we have a panel of three experts from within the Community Action Network whose agencies have been engaged in the Pathways to Excellence program and who also serve as commissioners on the Pathways to Excellence Commission. So we're going to talk about what brought them to the program, what impacts they have noticed at their agencies, and then invite them to share some closing thoughts. I'll share with you what our enrollment timelines look like. We'll have an opportunity for some question and answers, and we will, of course, ask you to complete an evaluation. And we hope to hear from you if you think it's time for your agency to engage in the Pathways to Excellence program. So our contact information is on the very last slide. All right, so what brought us here? What made NCAP, the partnership, decide to institute a program like this? It really comes from our inborn desire and recognition that our communities really deserve excellent community action agencies, and also a recognition that as dedicated and passionate and efficient and effective as our agencies are, there's always room for improvement. And so we can always strive to kind of go beyond that compliance mentality and towards an excellence mentality. So that's what we're hoping to support community action agencies in doing, is creating that culture of excellence. We didn't make it up out of whole cloth. The Pathways to Excellence program is based on the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award, and is designed to really empower community action agencies in their support, in their pursuit of excellence, and that's through intentionality, through formality, through making sure that the things that we do, which are often very good things, are actually ensconced in policies and procedures. And so we created 35 standards of excellence, which are organized into 7 categories, and that are really best in class practices that were developed with feedback from the network. And so it's through that intentionality, that intentional process of assessment and implementation that your organization can engage in continuous quality improvement and work towards the full excellence deployment. So we often talk about continuous quality improvement. And so the Pathways to Excellence program is a way for agencies to really examine their processes and ensure that they are creating those processes that really support that continuous quality improvement. So for the categories, categories 1, 2, and 3 focus on kind of the drivers within your organizations that really determine the purpose and the direction of an organization. So that's leadership, strategic planning, and customer focus. You'll notice category 4 is listed here on this graphic, kind of underneath. That's the foundation. It supports all of the others. That's your measurement analysis and performance management. And it really focuses on how data and information are aggregated and analyzed and distributed and used to determine your progress and inform all aspects of your agency operations. Categories 5 and 6, human resources and organizational focus, that really is talking about our efficiency and our effectiveness, especially when we take a look at our people and our processes. And then, of course, those of you who know me know I'm a Roma person. I was there when we stirred the first Kool-Aid, and I've been faithfully making batches of Roma Kool-Aid ever since. So category 7 focuses on the bottom line, our use of results-oriented management, and whether our organizations are progressing towards fulfilling our missions and achieving the intended outcomes and results within our communities. So a few years ago, the partnership took a look at the program, the Pathways to Excellence program, and decided to deploy a tiered approach. And it's, again, still utilizing that basic framework of the Baldrige Award. We decided to start with an entry level or a commitment level, and then have different levels of progressive engagement, and increase in the amount of inputs that are required and the activities that are required as you move through the tiers. So for Pathways to Excellence, those tiers are bronze, that's that initial commitment, and silver and gold. And then the final level is the actual award for excellence. So the tiered approach is really designed to allow community action agencies to come in at whichever level you feel that your agency is ready. There's no requirement to formally complete one level before you go to the next. However, it's just a strong recommendation, and my experience in the past year and a half or so being at the partnership is that the agencies that do take it progressively really seem to have more of the aha moments and seem to have more of an opportunity to learn and to grow together as a team. And sometimes, and really, the tiers do build upon each other. So there are some things that you do in bronze that carry forward into silver and into gold. So while there's no requirement that agencies go from bronze to silver to gold, it's something that I would highly recommend that agencies take into strong consideration. So I've talked about the tiers and talked about the tiers. Here's basically what's required. Along the top, you'll see like a recommended or a general time frame that we're looking at for completion. In the left column is what's required for the enrollment package. And then the columns under each of the tiers describe the activities. So I really want to focus on this middle tier where it says build an excellence foundation, because you'll see how many of the activities in the bronze tier, the formation of an agency excellence team, agency excellence team meetings, such as a kickoff and a closeout meeting, and completion of the standards e-course, that's required for all of the tiers. So if you start at bronze, then your team will have already completed these first 3 activities. As you move into silver and gold, that's when you start getting involved in cohort meetings where you come together with other staff from other agencies. We provide, NCAP staff lead those meetings and provide you with opportunities to really start to think about, what your self-study is going to look like, how your team's going to pull all of that information together. And the, the same, the first three meetings include silver and gold tier agencies. Then there is one additional required cohort meeting for gold tier agencies. For silver tier, we do require that each agency enrolled in the silver tier have a pathways implementer on staff, and we provide that training as well. And then for the gold tier agencies, they are required to have one peer reviewer on staff. That is a commitment that the agency is making at the gold tier to help to support the program by having one of their team members trained to serve as a qualified peer reviewer for the program in advance. And then there's also a self-study training independently for the gold tier agencies as well. So there's some documentation that agencies are required to put together, agency profiles, for instance, which really can help agencies to consider their history and who they are now, and what story do they like to tell, do they want to tell about the impact of their organization. There's a mini organizational assessment that agencies at the silver and gold tier are required to do. And then the self-studies. There's no self-study for bronze, but for the silver tiers, you take a look at 2 or 3 categories plus the correlating results, and you have to meet or exceed 25% of those standards, as well as be an NCAP member in good standing. The difference for the gold tier agency is that you look at all 7 categories in your self-study, and you must meet or exceed 50% of the standards, and also be a member in good standing. So this is available at the link that Mary Beth posted in the chat for us. So thank you, Mary Beth. All right, so you guys have heard enough from me. I really wanted this opportunity to be more about you hearing from your colleagues and your peers across the network. So we have 3 great panelists. We have with us Stephanie Zorn-Kasperzak, who is the Executive Director of Monroe County Opportunity Program in Michigan. Stephanie is also a professor at Eastern Michigan University in Ypsilanti, Michigan. We have Liz Kuopala, who is the Executive Director at Mojave Ottawa Community Action Partnership in Northwest Minnesota, serving 5,000 square miles of, I hear, wintry land these days. Liz strives to embed equity, change management, and a whole family approach to everything she does. These things give her hope that our brightest days are still ahead of us. Andrea Thomas serves as president and CEO for United Planning Organization, our community action agency in Washington, D.C. And UPO is an agency of excellence and has been since 2018. Andrea leads over 400 team members, and they provide intentional targeted human services activities and legislative advocacy to help over 50,000 low-income people in their area to progress towards economic stability. So those are our panelists, and I am going to pose some questions, and I will start with you, Stephanie, if you don't mind. And I'd like to ask to start off, why did you enroll your agency in the Pathways to Excellence program to begin with?
Sure. So thank you for having me today. We started our Pathways process. I've been in my role for 20 years. And when I came into the agency, I'm sure my story is similar to some of the other folks on the call today, but we had a lot of turnover in our executive director. Our compliance wasn't as good as it could be, and we had some issues as an agency. And so at the time, our grant manager suggested that we look at pathways to excellence. And I really didn't have a lot of knowledge of the National Community Action Partnership or pathways in general. And so started to look into it, and within 5 years, we completed our self-study. And so at that time, we didn't have organizational standards yet. So it was a really great way for our organization to look at where we were, because excellence is really about looking at where you are, and how you continue to improve from there. And so doing the self-study was a really eye-opening experience. Once I got my footing, and again, about 5 years in, we took the self-study. That was in 2010. So to say that excellence is a journey, not a destination, is, I think, a true testament to what excellence means, because that was in 2010, we did our self-study. And then organizational standards came about shortly after that. And so we were well set up to be a pilot for organizational standards in our organization. And a lot of people ask me what the difference between excellence and organizational standards is. So the way I look at it is that organizational standards gets us to compliance, but excellence gets us to be the best of the best. So if you think about Jim Collins and Good to Great, if you've ever read that book, organizational standards is good, excellence is great. And for me as a leader, we really wanted to be an organization that was great. That was excellent. And so I joined the Excellence Commission shortly after organizational standards went into play. And I've been on the Excellence Commission ever since. And so we were able to be part of the tiered approach and bringing that to agencies, which is really for us really important. And so we were just awarded our gold tier excellence in 2024. I feel like being on the commission, you need to lead by example. So we really wanted to go through that process. But like I said, it's taken my whole 20 years to get here. So for us, that's why excellence, was really important for my organization.
Wow, great. Thank you, Stephanie. Definitely a path, right? A pathway. Andrea, might I ask you to weigh in?
Sure. Thank you for having me. And I will say that when UPO came to this back in 2018, there was only one option, and it was the Pathways to Excellence. And so we spent about 2 years in that journey. But what prompted it was two things. First, we knew that we were going to have an upcoming leadership change. And although it was, a year and a half or 2 years away, we wanted to spend some time thinking about where we were as an agency, and some of the visioning that the former CEO had, some of the ways that he wanted to ensure that he'd stabilize the agency prior to leaving. It gave us an opportunity to explore that, and quite frankly, to look at some of where the pain points might be in the agency that we didn't pause to sit and talk about with one another, to think through with one another. And so this pathways journey, the self-study and all the parts of that allowed us to come together as a team, so that as the former CEO was departing, again, we had some sense of, okay, where are we in this whole idea of excellence? It also positioned us to think about, okay, that was excellent as, he was departing and leaving. But it had us to, or keeps us thinking about, what does excellence look like? Because what it was in 2018, 2019, certainly post-COVID, all of it is very different. And so it was really that change that was occurring in the organization. And then finally, what made us choose this route to do it was, it's easy to say, hey, we're going to do some review internally and come together and talk about who we are as an agency and what we're accomplishing and how well we facilitate our work. But having that third party review, it validates our work in a different way. There's someone else coming in, asking the hard questions, looking under the hood, if you will, and causing us to take a step back and say, what are they seeing and what are they thinking, and what might we be missing? So that was just critical for us in a transition period. But that's what took us to our excellence journey.
Great. I appreciate you bringing that up. I did not really focus on that when we were looking at the tiers. So I appreciate you bringing up that at the platinum level, there is an on-site visit that takes place as well, where, you can really see where the rubber meets the road and actually see the agency in operation. So I appreciate you bringing that forward as part of your experience. Liz, how about you? I know your agency has had an interesting path as well.
Yeah, thank you. And similar stories, I think. So I've been at my agency for 8 years. I came in after a super popular, long time executive. She wasn't the executive for 34 years, but she'd been with the agency for 34 years and then was executive for 20 some or whatever. And so then there's me coming in, and I didn't want to be put in the place of like, oh, this this is the way we've always done it, or this is the way Liz thinks we should do it, or like I didn't want to be caught in that kind of dichotomy or polarization. And so I learned about this pathways process, the excellence process. And so we signed up right away as an organization, created a team that was kind of spread like across the organization, from leadership to frontline staff, some sampling, just to kind of bring everyone together to figure out where are we. And the folks who trained us on the journey at the beginning really emphasize this is not the self-study is just to really assess where are you at. It's not to make everything perfect. So we did that assessment in a year, I think, and submitted it. And then we got back like what people thought, peer reviewers thought were our strengths, and then our opportunities for improvement. And then that shaped up our strategic plan. And what's really fun about it for us, what was fun then 8 years ago, and we've been working through that, all of the things I hear about as an executive director. How can we better serve our program participants? How can we do better staff recruitment and retention? How can we better engage our board? How can we make sure we have the proper representation? How can we make sure we're all of those things, everything I hear about every day, are addressed in the standards? And so now we've been working towards goals on many of those things in bite-sized pieces. But and then we know others who are on this journey too, because the partnership does a great job of bringing people together who are working through this together. And so you can share ideas and, hey, how do you do this and how do you do that? So there's a way for us in our rural Minnesota community to connect with people all across the country. And so it was great then as a brand new executive director, and now we're starting again in the tiers, with this new journey. And partly it's super fun to see how far we've made on some of those opportunities for improvement, and to celebrate success and just like take a moment and cheer us on, and also to kind of get just real about where we still have some room for improvement and what kind of systems do we have in place. Back to you, Terry.
Sure. Liz, what drove your decision to make the additional commitment to the program by becoming a commissioner? And Andrea, I don't think I asked you that question either. So Liz and then Andrea.
Well, so I love to just hang around with smart people. No, but so I grew up as a client of community action. And so I saw this pathways as like an opportunity for organizations to be the very best at like what they do. Like if someone knows a way we can do our work better, or someone else has tried something and it could work, I mean, I want to be all in on that. And I want to create a culture I see so often in my own organization and in others, where we're just like so burdened by all the regulative requirements and kind of focusing on the minute details of that compliance culture that Stephanie talked about. And this is a way to say, we got that. We got that. Let's move beyond, because the more you focus on those details, the more overwhelmed you're going to be. But you got that. Let's move to how we can do things better. Not just listen for what the government solutions are, but what are our community solutions? And so being part of the commission and kind of helping set a framework to make it easier or, more accessible to more organizations has been a real gift for me. I've learned a lot from it, and I've had the opportunity to encourage others to participate.
Great, thank you.
That is great, Liz. I will say for me, it's twofold. One is, even though we are a network, I really do feel like this is a sisterhood. And so when I'm at conferences, hearing about the interesting things that other sister agencies are doing across the network, it energizes and it excites me. So for me, this was a way to give back, if you will, be a part of that learning community that we have in community action, and help other organizations just to continue to elevate, right? Because we're all doing that in different ways. And so this was my one way, if you will, to contribute to the sisterhood and our continued growth and development with one another. And then my secondary reason, which is probably a little more on the selfish side, like Liz, I like being around, smart people who are always, energized with new ideas and new thinking, and, who bring the aha moments, right? Or create the questions that may leave us scratching our heads, but we want to dig a little bit more. And again, I think that lends to then the strengthening and the growth of the network. But quite frankly, it allows me to bring ideas and thoughts back to my own community action agency to say, hey, we hadn't really thought about this particular idea or concept, or, how are we thinking about excellence? And we talk about excellence here a lot. It's a part of our conversation with one another, particularly after winning the Agency of Excellence. It's really what keeps it in our mouths and in our minds, if you will. So for me, it was twofold: to lend to the growth and elevation of the network, the sisterhood, but to also keep excellence, at the forefront of my mind as well.
Great, thank you. Stephanie, coming back to you, if we asked you to think about the biggest takeaways from your agency's pathway experience, from an agency leader's perspective, biggest impact that you've noticed on kind of the way your agency does business, policies, procedures, systems, or even, perhaps what staff has shared with you about the experience, what would you most want to share with us?
Well, I think that we went for our gold tier award in 2024. So we'd been spending 2 years prior to that working on it. So from an internal perspective, coming out of the pandemic, we really worked so hard, and promoting an excellent culture is a lot of work for a leader. And so we were pushing and pushing and pushing during the pandemic. And we really wanted to go through the process now because we wanted to celebrate all that we know we are, and to have that kind of breathe through our culture in a bigger way. So the timing for us was really important for that reason, because our staff worked so hard during the pandemic, and we worked hard before that too, but there was just this extra feeling of, gosh, now's the time to do this, because we've really earned our keep over the last couple of years in community action, as you all have across the United States, right? So internally, it was kind of a celebration of all that we've accomplished. But it also really, it had us taking a hard look at how formalized our processes are, because for us, we went through some of these questions in the standards, and it was like, oh, we've been doing that for years, but we've never written it down. And so formalizing some of those processes for us was a good thing for us to go through together. So I will say that. And then externally in the community, you know, our community depends on us a lot to serve the greatest needs in Monroe. We've been that way since 1965, right? But so we've been working on just elevating our reputation as a strong, solid nonprofit for, you know, 60 years. But going through the pandemic and then being able to say we've gone through the gold process and we achieved that really added legitimacy to our organization, because as all of you know, the competition for funding is brutal. And so for those smaller organizations that don't have kind of the backbone that community action has, it can be really tough. And so for us, it added a level of legitimacy externally that we found to be really supportive in getting additional funds to do more great work.
Great. Okay. Bottom line there, right? We have
Yeah.
multiple bottom lines as well. I mean,
Right,
we may be not for profit, but that doesn't mean we don't need funding.
right, always.
Liz, can you share with us as well, kind of what your major takeaways are, some policy or systemic changes perhaps, and any feedback you might have from staff?
Yeah, so it's really fun to win recognition at the national level. It's super fun for the staff who are present at the national conference to see, you know, like our name up there, our name in the brochure, you know, like that's super fun, makes everybody stand. But it's also fun for the folks back home, you know, to just know, you know, because you work so hard and there's not enough thank yous, and to get that kind of recognition is a real pick me up, I think. Um, it's also helped us re-engage. You know, we've had some staff turnover in these past, you know, 7 years or something since we'd gone through it before. And so it's a chance to just um, re-engage new leaders, people who have maybe been promoted over time and are in different roles now, to have them also think through why it is we do these things, how could we do it better, like here's, you know, here's what we do around the ethics, how could we better embed the ethics, and since they've been in several different positions while we've been doing the ethics, they know it from different points of view. So I think that's been helpful. um, and and I think it's helped us just by having this continuous quality improvement. It's allowed us to say, instead of everything all at once, let's work on this policy this year, and let's put it on the work plan next year to tighten up this other policy or, you know. And so it's given us like confidence that we know that we're doing the, instead of like coming from it a little bit, maybe, you know, when you come from a scarcity mindset or kind of a self-esteem challenge, and you're just like, oh, I'm never going to be good enough. I feel like this process allows us to recognize what we're doing well and have a plan to improve or assess or something. And so I think it's empowered us. It's helped us kind of slow down and focus a little bit. And then it's helped us just kind of recognize that we are uniquely good about some things, and other organizations are uniquely good about other things. And, you know, so we've had people come on like tour of our organization and to learn more, or to, you know, they have staff come and provide technical assistance to their organization or something. And so that too is fun, to just not getting our egos about it, because there's a lot of other things we're not the best you know. And so it's provided that kind of continuous learning.
Great. Andrea?
Sure. You know, I want to underscore two things that I heard from Stephanie and Liz. One is, it was interesting as we were coming around the table, particularly when we were doing our self-study, and having an understanding of there's a process, and we all may get to the end of the process in the same way. The end is the same, but we saw that there were these different avenues, if you will. And so coming together and codifying and doing the SOPs and having everything written, I would agree that was a key part of this process that we went through, right? Because we were doing things, but not always having it written down. And there was, when we won the Agency of Excellence Award, when I tell you there was this tremendous sense of pride, and we took a picture of the award, and everyone in all of our buildings across the city, we had the picture of the award, so everyone could be reminded that they were very much a part of this excellence award and the work that we were doing. So that was key, but I would like to also put out a few things that we learned in terms of process. And there were two takeaways that I thought about for this group. And one is having that pathways champion, who is the one who's going to always keep everyone on task and coming back to the table, because we always have so much happening within community action within our agencies. And typically it's something that's going to take a long time that will fall between the cracks or fall by the wayside. And so that person who's the champion for, we're going to get this across the finish line because we believe in this and it's important to the agency. I cannot highlight that enough. It's something that's really, really important. And the person or persons who occupy that space in the agency, that they are great finishers. Some people will start with so much great energy, but they just have a hard time finishing. This is something that requires a really, really a person with just great vision and who is a strong finisher. And I think that was something that we recognized, that there was this motivation that needed to occur all throughout. And again, this was a little over a 2-year process for us. So someone who's going to keep everyone on task, and hey, we all need to keep coming around the table for these meetings. That was before everything was virtual, obviously. So I wanted to put that out there as just a key takeaway, that there's a champion and that person is a great finisher and is methodical in their approach. So as there are wins or things that are happening along the way, it's what keeps everyone motivated to keep coming back. So that was a key takeaway.
Awesome. So we're gonna I'm gonna give you guys an opportunity to kind of think about what some last thoughts might be. I'm gonna switch back to sharing my slides, and Liz, if I could get you to start perhaps with some last thoughts for our folks.
Yeah, I'd say a couple things. One is, I know that sometimes we're just always waiting for the right time. Like, this isn't the right time. We're all so busy right now. This isn't the right time. I would say any time is the right time to jump in. And this process allows you, especially the tiered process now, to jump in at the pace that's right for you. And just starting is fantastic. And you're not going to get in trouble if you find out it's going to take you a little bit longer than you thought. And so don't wait for the right time, because now is the right time, and it's yeah. So that's one takeaway, or one piece of advice I'd have for you that I hear a lot from people. Like sometimes people say, like, oh, we've had a lot of staff changes, but then you heard some of us say that's exactly why we stepped in when we did. So the other thing I hear from people sometimes is they worry that it'll be in writing what they don't get, what they get right and what they don't get very right. That these opportunities for improvement that have been such a gift for me might look like it's bad marks for somebody, and that's not at all what this is. It shows you, and it's private, like only you only you and the staff that are sending you the information from the national partnership ever see it. So but it's not couched like that at all. It's very much couched in a strengths based, here's some room for continuous quality improvement. It's a super inspiring document, no matter where you're at in the journey, I think. And so, and then if you have questions about it or anything at all, I'm happy to talk with you. I'm a super champion of this program, and I hope you'll step in if you haven't. Thanks, Terry.
Thanks, Liz. Stephanie?
Yeah, I love what Liz said. I would say again, Pathways is a journey and it's okay where you are. I think many of us are overachievers, and so we want to be the best of the best, or we want to be perfect, right? But excellence is really about identifying where you are, and it's okay where you are. And that's why we developed the tier process, is that there are different levels. You can enter in bronze, and it's a shorter process just to kind of see and get a taste of it. The other thing that I wanted to mention for those of you, we are commissioners, so we love this stuff. We're ambassadors. I don't know about Liz and Andrea, but I talk about it all the time in Michigan, so I'm a broken record. But one thing, if you're interested in Pathways and just kind of getting a sense, they always do peer reviewer training, so you can become a peer reviewer of the Pathways process. And I did that many years ago, and it was amazing for two reasons. One is you get to learn the Pathways to Excellence process beginning to end, and it's a great organizational learning experience. But two, we don't want to recreate the wheel in community action. There's so many great things going on across the United States. To be able to get a flavor of what other people are doing helps make us all better. I always say we're only as strong as our weakest link. And for me, just making sure that we're excellent and we're the best that we can be helps us be stronger. But peer reviewers, if you want to get involved a little bit and kind of see, I think there's a peer reviewer training coming up in the upcoming year, so get involved in that. And just, accept where you are in knowing that there's always ways of improving. I noticed somebody asked a question about how big our team was when we went through Pathways, and we had about 8 to 10 people. And I'll leave with that.
Thank you, Stephanie. Andrea?
Thank you so much. I will just end with what I'm going to say. We're talking about the byproducts of what we saw and going through this period. One was team cohesion, coming together, doing this whole exploratory project together, an assessment project. It really did a lot to bring the team together. So even had we not won the Agency of Excellence Award, we were in a different place in how we came together to look critically at the agency and ask critical questions and assess differently, and to be open to the answers that we found. And I think that that is imperative for any agency that wants to be strong and to grow. You have to be able to ask the hard questions, deal with the tough answers and the answers that you may not necessarily like, and determine how are we going to be different. And so that was one of the byproducts. The other byproduct was that our grant writer was just adamant. After we won the Agency of Excellence Award, he would put that in all of our grants moving forward. And he said, I know that this has made an impact on our awards because I'm putting it in the grants. I'm referencing where this came from. I believe they're really checking into it. And so they recognize that we're operating at a very, very high standard. They can trust us with their resources. And they want to be aligned with us, these different granting sources. And I think that was, a byproduct that I don't think we had anticipated going into the Pathways process. And then finally, Liz said something interesting, and that is start now, just start where you are, jump in. And Liz, I'm going to say, when I thought about this, I was going to recommend to folks, if there is a change or something that's happening in the agency, maybe you're going to have a new HR director, or maybe this area in the agency may be seeing something new, that this is that great time to engage in this process. But I'm going to actually scrap that a little bit and say, don't overthink it. Do what Liz said, that now, now is the time. Determine that, hey, we're going to try this, that there can be great byproducts from this for our agency. Because sometimes when we think long, we think wrong, right? And we talk ourselves out of it. So I encourage those of you who are listening, if you're here, that means that you think that, hey, our agency, we really should be on this pathway and we deserve this recognition. or we should be taking the time to ask ourselves some of these questions that are guided through the Pathways journey. So I encourage you to dive in and do it. Thank you.
Wow, great, you guys. Thank you. You brought exactly the energy and the belief in the Pathways program to bear today that I was hoping you'd be able to share with everybody. So I think we've kind of touched on the questions that have come into the chat. I'm not sure. Liz mentioned in response to how many team members did you have? About 8. I think that sounds right, Liz. Andrea, I don't know if we asked you how many team members you had on your excellence team as you
Just
embarked on.
typing in over the
Oh.
2-year period. I'm going to say it was about 15 because we had some come off, some people left and all that. So about 15. The core group that was really a part of it the whole time, about 8.
Okay, and you're a staff of 400. So yeah, that's a pretty tight knit excellence team for a group that size, and to be able to maintain the culture and the attitudes. Again, that speaks to your discussion of having that champion, that person who's going to keep it all pulled together. Because yeah. All right, great. So thanks. And again, continue to put any questions in the chat that you might have. I'm going to move us forward a little bit. And again, we'll come back for any last minute questions if our panelists will be so kind as to hang out for a few minutes. So let's talk about some timelines. We've talked about the bronze tiers, and one of the questions in the chat kind of hits on timelines in terms of completion, but let's look at timelines in terms of enrollment. To enter the bronze tier, to enroll in the bronze tier, your agency can do that at any time. Those enrollments are accepted on a rolling basis year round, and I will facilitate that enrollment process, get you guys enrolled in the e-course, have a kickoff meeting, all of those things, and be probably your primary contact throughout the bronze tier. Silver and gold tiers, that's where we were talking about the cohort meetings. So therefore, we have 2 cohorts that form each year. We are forming our spring 2025 cohort now. Agencies can enroll in either silver or the gold tier anytime up until February 21st. And then we will form a fall cohort as well later in the year. So yeah, there's a little bit of documentation to pull together. If you go to the link in the chat and at the bottom of the slides that you'll get later, you'll be able to review all of the information that I've talked about in terms of the activities for each tier, the timelines for each tier, but to the point about how long does each tier, just to kind of review that real quickly. Bronze tier is about 3 to 6 months. Silver and gold, as Stephanie mentioned, you're probably looking at a year or 2 for the gold. All right. Oh, well, I want to stop and just ask, are there any other questions before we look at wrapping things up today? Anybody have anything more in the chat? I don't see anything. All right.
Terry, I think we have not given sufficient praise to the staff at the partnership. So some of the questions are like, hey, what if I need a little bit of help? Let me just say, and I know we'll all say, but the staff at the partnership are just the most encouraging and helpful and supportive folks you'll ever come across. And they've seen many different organizations across the country and where we're all at, and they'll meet you where you're at. And I just find it to be so encouraging to work with them. So Terry's a huge resource. Leah and Mary Beth are here as well. And Tawny, there's a huge team of people who've got your back.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I also would like to sing the praises of our team here. And yes, to your point, we are here to support you that is our goal with the Pathways program. And so I want to go ahead and put this up in front of you. We would like to just ask you to take a couple of minutes to provide us with some feedback on the webinar today. I would like to ask you all to take a moment to thank our panelists. So thank you, everyone. And I will ask Mary Beth Schneber-Remrev and Leah Paletti, who are two other members of the NCAP team, if they want to come off mute and say anything before we wrap up today. Nothing like putting you on the spot, Leah.
I know, right? I just want to say thank you to our panelists. As a newbie here at NCAP, I appreciate your positivity about the pathways and also your enthusiasm because it's infectious and I want to go through the award process, but I'm with NCAP. So thank you so much.
I'll
Thanks,
just
Leah.
echo and say thank you to everybody who joined us today. Thank you, panelists, and all of our commissioners. I mean, this program is really only possible because we have fabulous leadership, and that leadership are all of your peers who sit on the Excellence Commission. Be looking for more opportunities to engage in excellence next year. Stephanie talked about there will be an opportunity to go through peer reviewer training. We'd love to have you join us as a peer reviewer. We offer implementer training 2 times a year if you want to learn more about how to go about this self-study thing we've been talking about here. We have a pre-con at MLTC to learn more about customer satisfaction, and all things excellence are grounded in excellence as defined by your customers. So lots and lots of opportunities to engage with us. And if you're not ready for any of that, any of the people in these boxes would be happy to chat with you more about excellence and what it might look like for your agency. So thank you. And thank you, Terry, for leading us in this session today.
Sure, absolutely. I'm seeing a lot of thanks in the chat. So yes, thank you very much. We appreciate you joining us. I need to update the slide and get Leah put on here. No offense, Leah, but Leah is literally brand new, freshly minted at the partnership. So I will share this information with you in case you want to reach out to any of us, and we'll get Leah's information added to the next slide. So apologies, Leah. And then I believe that is it. Any last minute questions? We'll be glad to have you come off mute and actually communicate with us. Any last thoughts? Well, one of the most commonly and perhaps overly used phrases in our society and our work world these days is, how about if we give you 7 minutes of your day back then? All right. Again, thank you, Liz. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Andrea. And thank you to everyone who joined us. And I'll be looking forward to seeing those enrollment forms come through. So we look forward to engaging with your agencies and Pathways to Excellence. And thank you very much for joining us.